Hi, and welcome to Division Within. I'm Katrina.
I'm Loretta.
I'm Lori.
I'm Lisa.
And today we're talking a little bit about how to find and maintain balance amidst all of the chaos that's happening in the world right now. We've got weather events, we've got
Earthquakes,
we've got volcanoes, we've got
all the political unrest, and
the shooting in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. How does it affect us, and what do we do to kind of find and maintain our balance? Mm-hmm. So what's happening for you, Loretta, as you're seeing all of this unfold? Whether you watch TV or not, it's on the internet, it's on information on your phone, it's on all kinds of things. So,
in cocktail conversation, just can't escape it.
You're right.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty scary. And, when you're going through and you're taking a look at all of these different events and you're hearing all about it, I mean, for myself personally, sometimes I feel like if I don't be careful, I can get overcome with such a feeling of helplessness. Helplessness, like, what can I do to help? How is this going to affect my world, our world? And then I also feel a lot of sadness because of all the destruction that's going on. I really don't know how to explain what's happening. So it's just a lot of hopelessness, sadness, and even people that I talk to at work or, friends. I mean, no one, I think everybody's in disbelief. I don't think anybody really knows what to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good point. How do you maintain and find balance, Lisa, when you're seeing all of this going on? And I guess what I love that you did, Loretta, is that you spoke a little bit about how it lands for you, how you feel it. Because I think we have to acknowledge it, right? What do you think?
Well, I agree about having to acknowledge it. And if we shelve it and put it on a shelf and don't face it, then it's going to stay on the shelf until we're ready to transmute it. Yeah. So the key for me, and it's difficult to use my 3 A's, accept, appreciate, approve. That's ridiculous. How am I going to approve of a shooting?
Right.
But yet, that's the magic in this realm, because when I look at it, if I can look at it, which is difficult when I get lost in the story and have such empathy and sympathy, rather than compassion on a non-judgmental level, the sympathy and empathy kicks in big time. And it's like I want to go rescue everyone or save the world or change everything out here. And I'm like, whoa, hold your horses, Lisa. Go back to your 3 A's. Well, how am I going to accept, appreciate, and approve of this? This is insane. This is insanity. We've gone too far, right, as a species. Well, that gets me back to ground zero, to the neutral zone, to the void, to make me realize who I really am, to remind myself of who I really am. Just pure love and light, and that everyone is that. And this is just a bunch of experimental realm gobbledygook, why we're challenging ourselves to stay peaceful in this realm of chaos that we perceive is beyond me, because it seems like it's getting us to the breaking point.
Okay, that's a really good point, and that's an interesting perspective as well. What comes up for you?
Also, I find that it's a lot of unrest. It's almost like my skin is hypersensitized, and I find I need a lot more rest. Yes. Just a lot of rest to deal with it. And when I do, I ground so much more, and I'm in so much more of a peaceful place. But it's interesting too, kind of to your point, how do we accept, appreciate, and approve? I don't remember where, we send links back and forth, and we all, share whatever it is dropping in. And one of the links that came through, was talking about how everything is so divine, and that, on some level we approve of the situation that's happening, and we're present, for it. And it could be, life contracts that are up and they're ready to do something else or what have you. And that I know that sounds controversial, but I just feel like that helps my heart to think that there's some divine order to it, and I just focus on what I can do to keep myself centered. And it's very interesting too right now. I feel like more than ever in my life, I am really called to honor what works for me and stand in my truth like none other, where I would have not rescue necessarily, but maybe, but where I would help someone out, maybe at work or, take over for something. It seems like everything goes awry for me, and maybe they needed to be there and that was part of their journey. And, so it's really like, what is going to bring me centeredness and peace, and kind of how do I deal with that feeling of like selfishness and yet
No, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, I'm finding myself becoming more of a hermit. I mean, wanting to be home, wanting to do things. And I also liked what you said. It's kind of like talking about setting boundaries against unnecessary chaos.
Yeah.
We already know that the big chaos is going on, right? And, myself as well. I mean, sometimes there's external chaos that we can control by setting boundaries and setting limits, and that includes with people or situations, and so I find myself doing a lot of that as well.
Oh, that's great, and that's good information. I think for me, what I'm realizing is, and what's showing up for me intuitively, so this is not anything that's proven fact, but what's showing up for me intuitively is that as healers, as light workers, as people who are here to learn unconditional love, this chaos gives us an opportunity to be beacons, to stand in our power, to set boundaries. And sometimes setting boundaries and doing some of those things are the most compassionate things that we can do.
Right.
Finding a way to unconditionally love others.
Ourselves as well.
Ourselves.
Yes, that's
and
the
not
big
judging
time right now.
ourselves for feeling
Right.
like we need something. We need to be home. We need to be sort of nesting. We need to be kind to ourselves, as well as, deciding what is my call to action, what are my intuitive messages for inspired action that I'm getting around sort of the situation. So it can be challenging to navigate, and it's everywhere. Unless you completely crawl into a cave, you're going to see something about what's going on. And my heart goes out to the people who are taking care of the people who were affected by any of these tragedies. I mean, I think it's amazing that the work that they're doing. And so, I don't know. I feel like some of the chaos is going to continue. It's going to happen in different ways. And it's part of what we're called to do as light workers and just human beings on the planet is to be as kind and loving as we can possibly be to ourselves and to everyone around us.
It's almost like leading by example.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I was just thinking as you all were talking, when we get into the rescue mode, and as you were saying, maybe we're interfering with their journey,
right,
which is causing chaos as a result, even though we had good intentions.
right.
If we're doing unconditional love, like you said, Kat, the best way I'm thinking for me to do that is not to necessarily decide not to take action. The action may be the best thing in the world to do. However, it's incumbent upon me to remember to take that action with compassion, with unconditional love, without expecting a quid pro quo, without expecting accolades or affirmation. If I were to go to Puerto Rico and help, for example, not to expect anyone to say, "Oh, Lisa, you're doing such a great job." But if they do, that's icing on the cake. It doesn't feed my ego.
Sure.
It's just a love thing. And maybe when we do it with unconditional love and no expectations, no attachment to the outcome, then we don't maybe interfere with the journey.
Right.
I mean, I'm just thinking this through.
Well, I know I think it was the first earthquake or what was it? Was it a
Hurricane?
Hurricane. It was the hurricane that came through. Mark and I both were just like, we wanted to just walk away from our jobs and go help.
Right.
Like we were so drawn.
Right.
And I just feel like more than ever, old paradigms of, that are rolled up or wrapped around fear of, look, you've got to cover your bills or do this or do that. Like, I just feel like we're really being called to let go and step into a whole different realm.
I think a part of that too, and this is my personal belief, but the earth is crying for help.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's there's so many with all the toxins that we put into the oceans, into the land, and we're drilling and we're building everywhere, and we're just upsetting the natural balance, right? I mean, any type of it's just like our own bodies, right? If we are not paying attention to the health of a certain part of our body, then our whole system gets out of whack, and we have illness and disease. So there has to be a natural balance with our hormones and our chemistry and all these things, right? And the same thing with the earth. I mean, the earth is a living organism, and it's out of balance. I mean, there's so many bad things. It can't sustain the things that we're doing to it anymore.
I agree, and I think the earth is kind of crying out and asking for help, and a lot of the movement that we see, I think, supports that. Hearth and home, organic gardening, more natural, clean sources of energy and living, and automobiles that are eco-friendly, and all of those things. I think we're moving in that direction. I just question, are we moving fast enough? And I feel like these are sort of warning lights on the dashboard from the earth going, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I think, too, all the challenges we see is challenging us to focus on what we want to create rather than what we don't want to create. So the more of us that are focusing on all these miscreations, the hurricane in Puerto Rico and all of the victims, those are miscreations, and that's not what we want to create. So the challenge, ironically, for us is to have compassion, but not let the past of that affect the present, and literally start focusing on what Puerto Rico looks like now as this utopia, for example, or when the 311 happened, 311, whatever, in Fukushima. I did send some money that way through Red Cross years ago, which I now maybe think I won't do again because you never know. Like 99% of that goes to administration costs or whatever. When I did it, though, I sent it with this awareness that Fukushima looked beautiful, instead of sending it with the energetic of, oh, I feel so sorry for you all. I looked at it, seeing through all that, and saw the light in that area and all the people.
So the energy of the money you gave, you sort of infused with, this is going to create something beautiful.
Yeah, what I wanted to focus on, what I want to create with it, rather than focusing on the miscreation of what had happened.
That's awesome.
Kind of helping co-create the new phase or the new stage of it.
And that's a really proactive, positive standpoint. And I think helps us move again from a consumer-based, energetic and thought perspective to a creative, creative action and thought process, and adding to that kind of energy and creating that as a snowball and positivity.
Yeah, rather than feeling helpless about what's happened, start imagining, visualizing, and creating what we want, not only there but here.
I think that's a really great perspective. And so when you want to balance, then what do you do? So we've all kind of talked about how we acknowledge it, how we feel, but what do you do to find balance for yourself? I mean, it's everywhere. Like you said, it's in your coworkers are talking about it. It's on TV. It's on the internet. It's on I get pop-ups on my phone. I'm like, what in the heck?
Exactly.
And it's not about escaping it or denying it, I don't think. So what do you do?
Well, I honestly try to keep my environment very cleansed and non-chaotic. Do a lot of smudging. I also do a lot of writing in my journal. I say prayers. I've been lately writing down my prayers. So I have a journal specifically for writing down my nightly prayers, and I pray, for order and balance and love and healing for the world. And I also have noticed that I've become softer you know, because the world is already so harsh and sometimes abrasive, and rather than me, you know, fight against it and push against it, I've surrendered, not to that I'm necessarily accepting everything. I mean, I know we've got this acceptance thing, but I guess I'm saying I'm surrendering, knowing that it is a forward motion, that this moment too shall pass, right? It's not, right? So just knowing that, you know, even when these bad things are happening, that time and energy and the light is still moving forward. So I'm surrendering to that flow. And I'm just trying to be extra kind, and it's not even a conscious thing. I think I'm surrendering so much, and I'm taking so much of a softer position that I'm just naturally, you know, reaching out more, trying to be kinder. So that's really how I keep my balance.
That's awesome. What about you? How does balance show up for you then?
I try to infuse a lot of laughter.
So good.
Because that'll shift it for me really quickly. And luckily, Mark has a great sense of humor, you know, so he can shift it so fast, like instantly for me. And then I do a lot of breath work, or watch funny movies. That's a great thing at night. It's like I don't care what is going on. Even if I watch like 15 minutes of a funny movie, I've shifted out of it.
Yeah.
That's great, laughter.
Yeah, laughter is key.
What about for you, Lisa? What do you do to help yourself find balance?
Yeah, same thing. I just say, Lisa, quit. You know, I stop, look, and listen. I observe that I've got my mind rolling, and I'm focusing on the miscreations, and I say, stop it. And I, you know, use the violet ray and transmute it, and you know, do all kinds of different modalities. But the main thing is, I think, that we step out of our ego once we realize that what we're doing to ourselves.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. For me, I think it's some of it is journaling, some of it is laughter, and some of it is being outside, being with my dog, walking around in bare feet grounds me really quickly, and in a way that is, I hate to overuse the word balance, but it sort of evens out my flow.
Oh,
So
nice.
the highs and the lows that I feel emotionally as a result of some of the things that we see, and the little voice that's going on in my head going, you know, what are you going to do about that?
Yeah.
How are you gonna help the situation, or what can you do, or that little critic in my head that's like, okay, you see it, now what are you gonna do about it?
Right.
So I kind of turn that into a funny little voice, and imagine that the voice all of a sudden has sucked in helium and it's like, what are you gonna do about that? And then I
I like that.
so it's like a cartoon, and I'm like, hee 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 hee, and you know, I walk my dog a little bit, and everything seems to kind of even out.
Yeah.
So you know, I think those are just some of the things that I do too. I know having my hands in herbs and oils is always a balancer for me as well.
Yeah, and I play. I should say, in this realm, I play a lot of music to shift. Yeah, piano, flute, drums, anything I can find.
Yeah, music is an excellent way to shift the vibration. So gosh, we've talked about a lot. We've talked about really acknowledging what comes up for you, kind of honoring that in each of us. We spoke about how we find balance, and sometimes it's in music, it's in breath work, it's in journaling and smudging, and it's in walking around on the earth, being with animals. Those kinds of things can be really balancing. So we have lots of tools available to us to help us balance and just really accept, appreciate, and approve what's happening around us, and not get caught up in it, but honor it as part of what's happening in our world, and allow ourselves to walk more kindly and gently on the earth and in the relationships that we value most in our lives.
Right.
And with that, we invite you to join us on our Facebook page on
Rising Tides Global.
Rising Tides Global. And leave a comment for us underneath our picture here, underneath the video here. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know how you're finding balance and how you're dealing with everything that's happening in our world. And we'd also love to know about any topics you'd like to hear us discuss. I'm Katrina.
Loretta.
Lori.
Lisa.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.